Hey photographers, many of you, including Daniel, Anuraj, Aswin, Frank, Mario, and others, have asked me to compare the Fuji X-T20 with the Fuji X-E3. And superficially, they are very similar cameras in size and weight. They both have the same 24 megapixel sensor. They both shoot 4K video. So we've come to the Excellence in Playa, Mujeres, Mexico, to see if we can make a decision, a recommendation, and figure out which one I like best.
There's lots to do at the Excellence, and during a week of shooting various activities, these two cameras clearly have a great deal in common. Kim and I traveled with our friends Diane and Rob, and we did all find differences.
Well, I like the look and feel of both of the cameras. This one's a rather inconspicuous black. Kind of like this retro European rangefinder look with the silver and black.
Well, they are both available in black and silver versions.
Oh, okay.
These are both X-mount cameras, and I brought a selection of Fuji lenses: the 16-50 kit, the 16mm f1.4 for food photos in low-light interiors, the 60mm macro for close-ups of the cameras, the 50-140 zoom to get closer to the action, and that enabled us to try a variety of situations and combinations. I did update to the latest firmware before we left, and their similarities really make deciding that one is better than the other a bit difficult. And better can be different for each person. Size and weight are close to identical. The X-T20 looks a little bigger and feels a little heavier, and it is, by 46 grams. Depth is about the same, the X-T20 slightly taller, the X-E3 a few centimeters wider. The slight additional weight on the X-T20 is offset with a more pronounced grip on the front, while the X-E3 has a larger thumb rest on the back. The touch-enabled LCD screen is identical with one exception, which Diane picked up on.
The X-T20 has a screen that flips down so that I can take pictures at a low angle, like Lucy, my puppy, or if I'm in a crowd and I need to take a picture from above, I can flip the screen the other way.
And both have the same viewfinder, with a slight difference.
I noticed both cameras have viewfinders, and I do prefer a viewfinder on a sunny, beautiful day. I find it difficult with the sun's reflection on the LCD. This one has the viewfinder in the center, but the X-E3 has the viewfinder slightly on the side to the left, and I think I prefer that. I can keep one eye open to see what's going around beside me, and then my nose doesn't touch the touch screen.
The viewfinder display rotates on both, but on the X-E3 the LCD screen display also rotates when shooting in portrait mode. The X-T20 has a built-in flash, and the X-E3 comes with the Fuji EFX8 flash. Same flash shoe, same flash menu options. And while the capabilities are the same, the X-E3 is a little more minimalist in design.
This one has a drive mode dial right here on top to set movie, burst, panorama. Does this one offer the same functions?
Well, it does offer the same functions. You just have to change the drive mode using software on the screen.
I think I like having the dial on top. It's easy to see and easy to change.
Rob's right there. On the X-T20, turn the dial to set the mode, and on the X-E3, press the drive button, then use the joystick to select and confirm the new mode. That means the X-E3 has to be on before the mode can be selected, and then you're at least 3 button presses away. On the X-E3, the AFL button, which serves as back focus in manual mode, is on the raised portion of the thumb rest. I thought this might be slightly easier to locate when my eye is in the viewfinder. In reality, it's about the same. However, without a distinct tactile identification, I did press the adjacent Q button on the X-E3 accidentally. Once. The same sensor means image quality is identical. They both have full auto modes and full manual controls for exposure and focus. All exposure settings are the same with one exception. There are 3 low ISO options on the X-E3. The X-T20 has only 100. And both shoot 4K video at frame rates up to 30, HD up to 60. They're both limited to 10-minute segments for 4K, 15 for HD, same data rate, about 100 megabits for 4K, same chunks, about 4 gigabytes. Both have touch, which is the easiest way to select a focus point, and both support the screen as a touchpad while using the viewfinder. However, if you're inclined to use the X-E3's joystick, as I am, that's a nice feature to have. On the X-T20, you first have to engage the Focused Area Select button, which can be assigned to any button, I prefer the Fun button on top, and then use the cursor keypad to select. Both seem to have 8 custom function buttons, but on the X-E3, which doesn't have a cursor keypad, 4 are touchscreen swipe motions. My familiarity with the keypad makes it my easiest choice, but I am getting used to the swipe motions. One of the most significant differences is Bluetooth. The X-E3 has it, the X-T20 does not. They both have Wi-Fi to connect with the free Fuji Camera Remote app, which can be used for remote shooting and to transfer images. The X-E3's Bluetooth enables pairing between the phone and the camera, and it optionally supports auto image transfer, as well as time sync and geolocation. In playback, select the images you want transferred, and then, when you turn the X-E3 off, a notification appears on your phone. Connect to the camera's Wi-Fi network, this is an iPhone, I suspect this is easier with Android, and the images are transferred and ready to post on social media.
I have standard.
I asked Diane and Kim to walk through the menus and identify the differences. And there are few, but here's what they found.
I have standard, yeah, and then we've set 2.
First, there's a lot that's identical, and the differences are nearly all in favor of the X-E3, which seems like the more advanced firmware. The first difference is on the second tab, the focus menu. The X-E3 has 6 focus area frame sizes, only 5 on the X-T20. The smallest size on the X-E3 is a single focus point. Both have the same 3 focus modes. On the X-E3, All enables the rear dial to select not just the size for the current mode, but to change mode and select the size at the same time. Handy. The X-E3 has an option to store AF modes for both portrait and landscape shooting modes. Off is the same for both. Focus area sets separate areas. On sets mode and area independently. As Rob pointed out, the X-T20 has a drive mode dial, which has 2 bracket settings. On the menu, these can be configured for exposure, ISO, film simulation, white balance, and dynamic range brackets. On the X-E3, the exposure and film simulation are configured in the menu. The ISO and white balance are selected from the drive mode selector. Also for burst and the advanced filters. The selection is the same, the way to select is different. The X-T20 has a setup menu option to turn sound and flash off, which disables all sound, flash, focus illuminator, and self-timer lamp. The X-E3 does have the same individual sound controls and settings. Shutter sound options for the electronic shutter are the same for both. And incidentally, the mechanical shutter sound is the same. The X-T20 might be just a tad louder. On the X-E3, both screens rotate. Rotation can be disabled. On the X-T20, only the viewfinder rotates and it can be disabled. I wonder why the X-E3 doesn't have individual controls. The X-E3's display custom settings include a highlight alert, which flashes when an object, like the sand in this image, is too bright, alerting you to adjust the exposure. And this can be a useful feature, particularly for video, where overexposure isn't as easy to fix in post. But that's not all. On the X-T20, when you switch to video mode, the histogram disappears. The X-E3 retains the histogram in video mode. As long as I was out in the bright sun with SPF 60 on a 28-degree beach, I set them both recording 4K video. The first 10 minutes went by without incident. The overheating icon appeared after about 15 minutes on both, but both kept recording to the end of the second 10 minutes. On a previous trip, a camera from another manufacturer overheated before I could record the butterfly ceremony, but this time I got it. image transfer order is a display option on the X-E3. And the X-E3 provides options for the focus lever, which I've been calling the joystick. When locked, it's disabled. I prefer the push to unlock over the unlocked mode. On the X-T20, it's the selector button that toggles from using the control keypad as function buttons to using it only for focus area selection. And although both can shoot without a lens, the X-E3 can shoot without a card. If you know why, please let me know in the comments.
Now, I know you'd like me to make a decision. I know you'd like me to make a recommendation. I know you'd like me to tell you which is better. And I'm having a lot of trouble with that. So I think it comes down to personal preference or an understanding of what it is that you're shooting. So if you're switching drive modes, that dial is just so easy to do that. And if you're shooting high angles and low angles, that LCD screen that tilts up and down is really invaluable. But for video shooters, having the highlight display and having the histogram on screen while you're shooting is a really great tool to have. So I'm going to have to leave it to you to decide which of those factors you want to consider, if it's not some of the other factors that I mentioned in the video. Now, make the decision yourself. It's going to be a good one. I think these are both great cameras. Keep shooting until your memory card is full and your battery is empty. I do reply to all relevant questions and civil comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this kind of thing, please consider subscribing.